Hello, pleasure to be here and nice to meet you formally. Hello, everybody. My name is Juan Ardila. I'm running for City Council in District 30 in Queens. So that's representing Ridgewood, Maspeth, Glendale, Woodhaven, Woodside, and Middle Village. I'm the first Latino to ever run for this council district, but full disclosure, I grew up wanting to become a forensic scientist my entire life, up until the age of 17. And that's when my mother started facing unjust threats of deportation, and my family in Central America faced persecution and gang violence. So that's when I decided to transition more into public service because in terms of an attorney, you would execute laws, whereas in public service, you can change them. And that's when I started working for Council Member Brad Lander, fresh out of college. I transitioned into the DOE, focusing on expanding the 3K and pre-K for all programs, as well as pre-K dual language programs throughout our city. I was also involved with the International Rescue Committee, supporting at-risk youth with mentoring and tutoring, specifically in college applications as well. And right now I'm at a legal service nonprofit where I support everyday New Yorkers with access to benefits and legal representation. Is that okay, or should I continue in terms of the council race?
Keep going. You
Okay.
still have a minute.
Okay. Sure. So in terms of the city council race, my platform is focused on housing, education, and transportation. In terms of viability, what we're trying to do here, there's a large population, this district is 50% Caucasian, 50% foreign-born, and we have a large contingency. We've been endorsed by some of the biggest groups and some of the biggest elected officials throughout the city, so including the Queensborough President, State Senator Jessica Ramos, State Senator State Janaris, 32BJ, DC 37. We've got a good coalition of elected officials, labor unions, organizations. So we're here to bring in good inclusive politics, making sure that District 30 is being set up for success and bringing in as many resources as possible to the district.
Great. So you kind of segued into the next question, but why do you think you'll win this race? What about your campaign? What about who you are? Why will you win?
Yeah, of course. So I've been in public service my entire life, essentially. And I've been in Maspeth since I was, a little boy. I was born just outside of the district, but I've been here since I was essentially 1 year old. So I know a lot of the issues that we're facing and some of the challenges that many people face here in terms, and it's a really fascinating district. We have a good contingency of tenants and homeowners, for example, that have competing priorities. But I think what we're trying to do is support people that live in this district and set them up for success. So we built, in terms of viability, we have one of the largest coalitions in the entire city of labor unions, elected officials, organizations, and nonprofits that are publicly supporting us and throwing down with us. We have a lot of people within the district that are extremely excited to be joining this movement. They want to see someone that is focusing on inclusive politics. In terms of our win number, it's 5,500. We have the bodies to do it. We've been doing it already. Between now and June is essentially just reaching out to these voters and making sure that they know what our movement is and that they will have a representative that is setting them up for success. In terms of the platform, again, we're focusing on the in-district issues, so tenants, so that they get supports and resources and protections that they need, small homeowners as well, so that they get the resources and protections they need, expanding transportation, because we are in a transit desert for large pockets of the district, especially in Maspeth, Glendale, and Middle Village, and bringing in dual language programs. Like I said before, the district is 50% foreign-born, but we don't have a single city-funded pre-K dual language program, for example. So it's something that we want to bring into the district because we think it will set up a lot of people up for success, and that's something that the district can benefit from having that accessibility to dual language programming. So it's something that, we're focusing on the issues. We have the viability, we have the public support, and we have the volunteers to do this, and everybody's excited. So I think we'll be there at the end.
Great. So the next question. So over the past 40 years, as you know, rents in New York City have risen twice as fast as they did in the 40 years prior. So what is your solution to address the rent affordability crisis in the city, and especially in your district?
Yeah. So my District 30. So we definitely have, We face the housing crisis just like everybody else. We face it in a very different way. So we aren't plagued with luxury development and luxury towers so much. Our issues with housing are a little bit different than the rest of the city. If you're a tenant in District 30, 44% of the affordability will be lost by 2022, and that is the estimated projection. If you are a small homeowner in District 30, you pay some of the city's highest property taxes, even though you are in a district, as I've alluded to before, that is a transit desert. It is a district that lacks resources, that lacks employment opportunities, that is far from any form of interconnectivity, far from Manhattan. And when you compare that to a neighborhood, for example, and no disrespect or attack to anyone, of course, but when you compare that to a neighborhood like Park Slope, where it's more affluent, you have more resources, you have multiple train lines, 15 minutes away from downtown Manhattan, you see some of the challenges that we face and the inequities that District 30 is unfortunately suffering from. So in terms of the housing crisis, we want to expand housing by legalizing accessory dwelling units, so legalizing ADUs. What this means is that homeowners will be able to rent out their basements, garages, their attics, and sheds in a way that is legal, dignified, and stable for tenants. Now, this helps us for multiple reasons. This revenue that goes to small homeowners by renting out their garages or their attics, it goes towards their property taxes. It provides new housing opportunities for prospective tenants that are looking for more affordability. A third of the district already does this. So this is just a question of legalizing it and making it up to compliance, because I don't want to penalize you for doing it. I want to expand the housing supply within New York City and within the district. With this legalization, the RPA estimates 100,000 new homes in New York City. That is something that will support every New Yorker, and it will especially support District 30, given the land use patterns.
Sorry, the mute button. Great. I think we might have some follow-up questions at the end with that. So thank you for that. What is your vision for a full COVID recovery for the city? How do you envision that?
No, there's so much that we want to do. Essentially, we want to make sure everyone is vaccinated and safe. We want to make sure small businesses are back up on their feet. Workers are given, are able to go back out there, given the protections they need, because a lot of people were unfortunately displaced due to the pandemic. We want to support tenants, homeowners that unfortunately have, suffering from the pandemic as well. So a recovery for me ensures that, one, people that are facing housing insecurity are protected. Students are back in the classrooms, ideally with their teachers, back with their friends and classmates, back to a normal life, back to everyday life as we knew it, ensuring that public transit is accessible to District 30, because again, we don't have it, making sure teachers are being set up for success, because Zoom culture, we've all had to resolve and have to get accustomed to Zoom culture, but it's something that is challenging. Students' mental health has been in question because of the pandemic. Teachers as well, this is challenging for them in terms of how they're administering curriculum virtually. So we want to make sure they're being able to do this in person in a way that's safe and conducive to education. Again, and making sure small businesses get the recovery they need. So many people, so many small establishments throughout Myrtle Avenue, for example, have been shut down. So we want to make sure that people that have been working here, the small businesses, are getting the financial relief, the protection relief, and that they can get back up on their feet as we're transitioning into a post-recovery. So there's a lot of ways we can explore this, but again, it's making sure that we can, no one is left behind, and our policies are being used to uplift District 30 and various communities throughout New York City.
Great. So final question, and then we'll have your closing statement, and then we'll see if we can answer some of the questions that were in the chat, if you're okay with that. So since the start of the pandemic, a lot of attention has been paid to budget cuts, right? The need to cut funding. But coming out of the pandemic, where do you see opportunities for growth or revenue generations or growth opportunities?
Yeah, this is a really good question. So one of the biggest revenue growth I see, again, is with the legal quirk of ADUs. So property taxes make up a large contingency of city revenue. The issue with the current code is that it comes at the expense of working class small homeowners. What we want to do is, by legalizing ADUs, again, you're looking at a new way to expand housing that is conducive to tenants and is conducive to small homeowners. This revenue goes into that can generate our city budget again. The other way I want to go about it is by implementing what's known as a land value tax. Essentially what this is taxing vacant land throughout New York City. So you see vacant lots that aren't being used for anything, and at this moment there's no incentive for them to be used for anything because this land value tax does not exist. By implementing this land value tax, you're looking at new land that can be used to incentivize affordable housing, support tenants throughout the city. So you're looking at a combination of a legalization of ADUs with a land value tax that not only addresses the housing crisis, it makes a big dent into the housing issue, but it's also a creative way that reinvigorates our economy in a way that does not hurt working class people and in fact sets the whole city up for success. Those are my two biggest ways in terms of what I would like to see moving forward. And I think it would be, obviously there's no way to end the housing issue, for example, but it's definitely extremely effective. And in terms of what we can do creatively to ignite our economy again, bring back our city budget to a way that genuinely sets us up post a recovery, I think it's the way to go.
Okay, so why don't you, if you can, give a closing statement, but then just really focusing on, of course, the Ridgewood and Maspeth areas that were, people that have attended this are really interested in.
No, thank you so much. It's a privilege to be here, everybody. Again, being the working families Democrat in this race, it's a privilege. To be the real Democrat is an honor. It's the honor of a lifetime to be the first Latino to run for my council district. I'm from Maspeth, so I consider this my hometown. And bringing in good politics and good resources to the extent that we've been doing it. We've built one of the largest coalitions in the entire city where everybody wants to make sure this district is being set up for success. And what that means for Maspeth and for Ridgewood is success. It means more resources for us. Maspeth has been left behind by so many elected officials, by so many policies that we just literally get no resources at all. Now people want to come to the district. They want to support the district. They want to support the working class people of this district, working class people of Maspeth, working class people of Ridgewood. Again, we want to ensure that people in Ridgewood aren't displaced. We want to make sure that they're getting the housing protections. We want to support the small businesses, expand bike lanes, more transportation, expand green spaces throughout Maspeth and Ridgewood because we definitely need it. As I said before, this is a transit desert, which by definition means that we have a heavy use of car culture that unfortunately comes at the expense of public health, right? We have one of the highest public health issues throughout the entire cities, focusing more specifically with asthma rates for families and seniors. So we want to make sure that there's different lanes that we can explore that is conducive to the success of Maspeth and Ridgewood, expanding dual language programs in Ridgewood, especially because we have that diversity, that bilingualism will definitely support families, expanding transportation options in Maspeth, because again, we literally have no train stations at all. And in fact, our busing got reduced. So, and lastly, with the ADUs, you're looking at new homes that can creatively support tenants, that makes up the lost ground from the 44% of affordability that's being lost, and so supports small homeowners and creates new job opportunities for construction workers. So it's a win-win-win opportunity for everyone involved, which is why I'm excited to be here and I hope to have your support.
Great. So I think we can move into questions because I think we hit the nail on the head with the time. So we had a couple questions in the chat that are just following up on the ADU. So one is, how would you regulate it, or how do you envision regulation around it? And then also leases, like currently, how would we as a city implement a structure that would be supportive of people living in the ADUs and being successful? And then I know you also talked about the land value tax, or the land vacancy tax. I was wondering if that has worked and if you have seen if you're modeling that on other places where you've seen it be successful.
Yeah, these are all really good questions. So in terms, I'll start with the ADU. So in terms of what, uh, you know, the biggest thing is keeping it up to compliance. So again, a third of the district already does this. Now, the only issue with it, one, it's not legalized, and it's a safety hazard because when people do this on their own, you're most likely not going to be following safety compliance or fire guidelines. So again, getting that city input to ensure that this is a dignified and safe, stable home for tenants is one of the biggest things that we can push for from a city council perspective. Having that, working with the DOB, making sure that these new ADUs are safe for tenants. In terms of what we want to do, well, the second question in terms of leases being provided by landlords, I think that was a question. I think I saw it somewhere.
Yes. Yeah.
Rented out by, I think I saw it somewhere.
Yeah, the question was about landlords, but no leases provided by the landlord. How will we make sure that landlords are providing leases?
Yeah, again, so this is something that with any new affordable stable home, making sure that these leases are accessible and are being followed through in a way that is legalized and it's a way that doesn't displace tenants. Because again, what we don't want to see is something where, you know, you open your ADU to someone and then you take advantage of the situation. But there's also a cap in terms of how much can be rented out in terms of affordability. Because of the square footage of the ADU, it can't be over a certain limit. So that's something that we can also input from a city council perspective on putting caps to ensure that it does stay affordable and there's no abuse or no displacement being utilized by implementing an ADU in terms of bad landlords or bad actors taking advantage of tenants. And again, the whole point is to think creatively to expand the housing supply throughout the city. And you're looking at 100,000 new homes, which a lot of people already do. It's just not, that legal quirk is just not there from us, but it's something that we can push forward from a city council perspective. And lastly, in terms of the land value taxes, again, so this is something that, you know, it doesn't have the awareness that I think it should have. There are many cities that actually have done this before. There's numerous studies in terms of public financings, public economics, and housing. Land value taxes have been proven to be effective. Like I alluded to before, it does not mitigate the housing crisis in the sense like it's not the solution, it's not the end all be all, but it's something that can put a serious dent and expand housing in a way in New York City in a way that genuinely supports us and lifts us up and sets us up for success. So this is, again, these are two new avenues that we can address in terms of how we can increase the housing supply in a city that's becoming more and more expensive, and it's only projected to become more expensive because gentrification is just unfortunately outpacing affordability in New York City.
Derek, how are we doing on time?
It's 20 minutes right now. We've been a full 20 minutes. If you have any closing statements it looks like.
Yeah, or any additional questions? Anyone? Because I think we covered the ones that were in the chat.
Yeah, I think.
Oh, here's another question. Can we answer one more, ask one more, and then close? Do we have time?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the question, Stephanie, I'll just read your question if that's okay. So our district has a complicated history with race, and your opponent is someone who has consistently used racially coded language. How will you balance holding the NYPD accountable and addressing issues of racism in our community?
My opponent loves to use coded language. I'll say this: he identifies as the safe candidate as an attack of my Hispanic background. So it's very, I think it's amusing. No, so yes, look, we know what this district historically, at least what the front-facing history is, it's always been a certain stronghold, a certain demographic has held these public positions. This district does not, just because these individuals hold these positions and are the loudest, it does not mean that they encompass the majority of this electorate. District 30, as I said before, is 50% Caucasian. The other half is foreign-based. So you're looking at a district that is nearly 30 to 40% Hispanic, and this is the opportunity to elect the first, Latino in this position. In terms of this Caucasian demographic, you're looking at a population that has shifted more towards the left. You have Democrats that are in the middle, and then Democrats that are more left-leaning, again, that don't buy into this vision of this incumbent. So you're looking at a good coalition of three separate demographics that are all aligned in terms of bringing in good politics and bringing in inclusive politics to the district. Again, we know this is not the most liberal place in New York City. It's definitely not Park Slope or Astoria, but there is space for inclusive politics within District 30. In terms of managing or balancing NYPD accountability, again, it's trying to address what is the best way for a just budget moving forward in a post-recovery from COVID-19, increasing accountability, ending qualified immunity, and even offering early retirement packages for law enforcement officers, because again, this is something that supports law enforcers. They can retire earlier, but it's also a way for us to think creatively of new career opportunities for people that are within law enforcement. So it's utilizing our budget in a way that is responsible and conducive to safety, but also addresses the issues that we face within the 30th district and also the issues that we face citywide in a way that is genuinely conducive to our betterment.
Great. Thank you. So I guess, Derek, do we have a couple more minutes?
I would say we have 2 more minutes if you want, and then we should close up and let Scott in. Yeah.
So I think if you have any, I know we already asked you for a closing statement, but if you have any final statements, you have 2 minutes.
I have 2 minutes all to myself.
Exactly. Whatever.
No, that's so much fun. No, I appreciate to everybody here. I appreciate you having me again. We're doing, I'm having a blast. I have the best team helping me out. We've been getting as many endorsements as you can possibly get. Everyone's genuinely excited, and everyone's excited to see change and to see real representation and good public service within the district. I encourage everyone to get involved. We're super transparent, super hands-on, and our pathway is extremely clear. So again, thank you so much. We've built one of the largest coalitions in New York City. We have the Borough President, the Working Families Party, Make the Road, 1199, CWA, 32VJ, DC 37, you name it. In fact, as of today, we even got Planned Parenthood that is now public facing. So we've built a pretty good family. We have a great team going on, and I think, like I said before, as long as we stick to our message, we should be the ones that are there come June and especially come November. So I encourage you to get involved. We have so many volunteer opportunities this week and every single week going forward until Election Day and beyond. So definitely, please reach out to me, reach out to the team. I'm super open. I'm super responsive to everybody. So please throw down and let's see some good change happen. Thank you so much for having me.